Cooking rice on the stove really isn't as difficult as you might imagine. And I'm not talking about that minute rice, which, in my experience, to make good quote-unquote minute rice, takes more like 15 minutes. But that's a story for another day. You can find an abundance of tutorials online about how to cook rice on the stovetop with added ingredients like salt and butter, but I enjoy plain rice. When having a meal with rice as my starch, I often begin with simply a mouthful of rice. Its natural flavor is appealing without additives. To cook stovetop rice, basically, all you need to do is mix 1 part dry rice and 2 parts water in a pot. After bringing the water to a boil, turn down the heat and simmer for about 15 minutes. I usually cover the pot, but leave an opening to let out a fair amount of steam, since I enjoy a fluffier, drier texture in the manner I've grown accustomed to eating in Asia. Successfully cooking rice requires one to master the liquid element. Too much water, and your rice will be soggy. Let out too much steam, and it will be hard and crusty. Trial and error are often the best instructors, and after a few times, you'll grasp the nuances for preparing it the way you like best. When I think of rice, I recall sitting in a cafe near the Temple of the Gold Pavilion in Kyoto, Japan, enjoying a bowl of perfectly cooked rice with fried pork cutlet, miso soup, a side salad, and some pickles. I remember nutritious brown rice with various dishes at a vegetarian restaurant in Beijing, China, hearty servings of rice at dinner with friends in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and the time I made nigiri sushi by hand pressing rice oblongs and adding seafood toppings in Sapporo, Japan. When I was growing up, my mom would make rice using a rice cooker, sometimes a few times a week. She'd serve us rice with all kinds of things, but my most prominent memories are eating beef stew or chili on a bed of rice, or enjoying her broccoli, chicken, and cheese casserole, which uses rice as the starch. My mom's cooking was influenced by a Filipina friend who taught her to make lumpia, fried rice, and other Asian foods. From my experience, many people in Asia have been surprised to learn that some non-Asian Americans eat rice with regularity. And some people in the West may be surprised to learn that Chinese, Japanese, and other people in East and Southeast Asia enjoy quite a bit of bread in their daily diet. Of course, wheat and other grains are used in traditional products throughout Asia, especially in West and Central Asia, where bread, such as this naan in Urumqi in far west China, is the traditional staple food. And rice is not an exclusively Asian food. People throughout Africa have grown rice for millennia, and in our globalized world, cooks on all continents prepare the edible grass seed on a regular basis. These seeds and grains have undergirded the development of our civilizations and create commonality in the human experience. Since most of my time in Asia has been spent in China, many of my most salient memories involving rice have been made while living in that country. I've had the honor of visiting the homes of Chinese friends at simple abodes in the countryside and in the finest high-rise apartments. I enjoyed this delicious pilaf and other delightful dishes in the home of a Siva friend in Urumqi. Historically, seemingly countless generations of Chinese people and other populations throughout Asia cooked rice over fires. In the modern era, the use of electric appliances has replaced the old ways, but some rural populations throughout Asia continue to cook their meals in large woks, or pots, over fires. In the Chinese countryside, these fires are often kindled in chambers constructed with bricks or ceramic materials, but sometimes from local earthen materials, such as this Lurs unit outside a subterranean dwelling at Xiekou in the He country near the city of Xi'an in Shanxi province in north-central China. The Chinese often say that meals cooked over wood-fed fires are especially delicious, and based on my personal experience, I completely agree. Although some families still cook over fire out of necessity, many employ the traditional method out of preference, and Chinese urbanites often travel to the countryside to enjoy the old culinary arts out of sheer nostalgia. Cooking rice in that traditional way would most certainly be a challenge, and one would not acquire the requisite mastery of fire without a fair amount of trial and error. Making rice atop an electric or gas stove must be a walk in the park compared to cooking over a crackling fire. The daily chore requires patience as well as planning and other organizational skills. In some cases, before even thinking about enjoying a steaming pot of cooked rice, one might need to collect kindling and firewood, not to mention the grueling agricultural undertaking to grow and store the rice in the first place. These essential skills for rural living and the virtues they represent are combined with other values of traditional Asian cultures, such as persevering through adversity, humility in achievement, loyalty to family, respect for elders, commitment to ancient beliefs, and hospitality for travelers. While these ideals may be found with a more refined expression in cities, some would argue the down-to-earth people of rural Asia preserve them in their purest form. Reflecting on my experiences in rural parts of the American Midwest and in the Chinese countryside, I've often said that if farmers in China and the United States could communicate with each other, they would find much in common and most likely would enjoy each other's company. Even though their cultural and social expressions may differ drastically, and although some of the foods they eat may not be mutually appetizing, they cherish many of the same values. Stovetop rice takes me back to experiences I've had in China and other parts of Asia, and reminds me of the good people I've had the privilege of meeting and with whom I've shared wonderful meals, often in their own homes by virtue of their generous hospitality. The next time you enjoy a bowl of rice at a restaurant or cook a pot of your own, either in a rice cooker or on the stovetop, you may find yourself reminiscing on your own enjoyment of certain foods or reflecting on world culinary history and those timeless values that transcend cultural and national barriers and make us human.